Hello everyone. I'm looking to start it up. And full screen, maybe it'll load? New OBS stuff? Good. See, this is why I wish I test things before I go live. There we go. Whenever I update OBS, it likes to decide half the time that my webcam is worth keeping, half the time it's not. But anyways, I'm here. I'm Professor PonPon. Uh, just call me PonPon. It's weird having a professor title. But I'm going to go over the mid-roll. I'm going to go over the mid lane. Kind of quickly, what I'm kind of going to go over, it's going to be why mages go in the middle. I'm going to explain that. I'm going to explain the goals of the mid lane, contesting mid harpies and the like. I'm then going to go over tactics, like when do you have the advantage in the lane. I'm going to go over certain matchups to give you an idea of how to decide whether you're winning or whether you're in a winning matchup or a losing matchup and how to respond. And then I'm going to close it off with a raw guide. He's probably one of the easiest mid laners, but he has a lot of depth to him. I feel like I could go over him. It should be interesting. Yes, Mr. Professor Smite Game Hi-Rez PonPon should be what everyone addresses me as. But let's go straight into it. Actually, real quick, I still hear music, so let's drop that. Okay, so first let's go into kind of why mage in the middle lane, who is in the middle lane. It's generally mages. I went over this in another video, but the kind of idea is mages scale the best with the levels. They love to sit in a solo lane because all their abilities per level get really, really strong. They like the gold because all their abilities generally scale really well. And so you don't want to throw them somewhere like the Hunter because then you're getting denied a lot of experience by splitting it with the support. You're getting denied a lot of the experience because you're splitting it with the support. You don't really see them in the solo lane because it's kind of a more dangerous lane to be in the first place, but you're also really far away from everything. And but in mid, you're also next to mid harpies, which are an extra source of experience and gold. And that tends to be something that not only is you'd want as a mage, but mages are really good at getting. Mages don't have the really powerful ults, the really powerful skills that kind of just secure the mid harpies. If you're Ra or Ao Kuang or Scylla, you can just be there like, if you want to contest me on these mid harpies, I'm going to ult you and you're going to die. So that's why you generally see mages there. You can see physical assassins occasionally. You can see warriors. Like, Vimana generally is considered having one of the better clears, but they either like for any character that's an assassin or a warrior, generally there's either a lack of wave clear, or there's high risk, they don't have an escape, or they have to go too far forward to get like experience. So Thanatos is a good example. I've run him occasionally in mid for fun, but he has to go to the side of the wave and scythe and auto attack a lot to even get anything, so he's really susceptible to jungle ganks. Or a lack of scaling. Ramana is actually really good at clearing the wave, but he doesn't really scale too well on his abilities, and sure, his auto attacks are good, and he's a really big potent late game. Just throw him into the solo lane, let him get the late game there, because he's not going to be as impactful as other people can be from levels 5 to about 13 would be about when mages would outperform him. But the whole goal of the mid lane is you want to contest the mid harpies and control the mid harpies. If you can get both, great. You want to at least ensure that you're getting one of them. You want to try and control the mid lane farm and deny the opponent farm. So you want to sit there and try to you want to push them so that you can get all the farm. You want to get the last hits as best you can, and push them under tower, or at least make sure that you're not the one being pushed under tower. Because when you're pushed under tower, this is a mechanic in Smite. When you're pushed under tower, anytime a tower actually hits a minion, at that point they've lost all gold value. It doesn't matter if you fling that minion back into the lane and kill it later. It has lost all gold value. It doesn't matter if like the tower last hits it or just hits it once. It's basically worthless. You do get experience for it, so you won't fall behind in levels, but you will fall behind in experience. And in cases like the mid lane, if they have a pen boots on you while you're still at rank 2 or anything like that, that's a huge detriment, and that kind of sets up the lane. Also, being pushed on the tower means the opponent mid is free to rotate. If they didn't rotate, they'd just be standing there wasting their time staring at you staring at you trying to get minions. And so a lot of the times, if you're pushed on a tower, you can't follow as easily. People can start rotating, and that's kind of a problem. If you have good ward coverage, it's less of a problem, but then you're also spending wards while being pushed on a tower to try and stop that. It's not good. That's kind of why mages are generally in the mid, because they have wave clear, and so even if they get pushed on early, by the time people start rotating, they generally have the wave clear that, like, it doesn't matter how far ahead the other opponent is, they can just use one skill and clear the wave. That's pretty much the mid-roll, kind of what it is, what it does. Let's go into some tactics that you want to use. Dueling in the wave. So, early on, especially from 1 to 5, is where you kind of establish dominance in the lane, and there's a few things that go towards helping that. First is identify if you're in a matchup where you out push your opponent. If you are an Ao Kuang versus a Scylla, you have stronger clear. That's just how it is. His rank 2 tornado can kill back harpies, and a few auto attacks and your minions hitting on the front ones will kill them as well. While Scylla is pretty much stuck at only getting the minions to like half health with her ability, and so you can use that to your advantage. Go forward. You're with a minion wave. She can't really fight you, so by actually pushing onto her, you push her under tower. She might eat one poke, which slows her, puts her in range of archer. She eats archer damage early on. That's huge. A lot of people in the mid lane who aren't really aware of this will start fighting, and then all of a sudden they'll get caught in a position where I still have like 5 minions up and you have none, and then they'll just get poked to death, or they'll get poked to really critical health. Um, I've seen Raws lose waves where they should win because they got poked really early, and then they had to use the heal on themselves rather than the heal on the wave, and I'll kind of get into that. But they'll lose their ability to actually maintain control of the lane, and it will just snowball out of control. A good mid laner will use that to his advantage and begin really pressuring him and start rotating, maybe help the jungle invade the enemy jungle, rotate really early for like an early gank, stuff like that. Um, and like in certain cases, you also want to know if you're a counter pick. So again, in that situation with the Scylla, let's put it against Ra. Scylla has a really hard time clearing the wave until late, and so Ra doesn't really mind too much. He can clear the wave pretty quickly with his 1 and his heal, but it's fine for him to be a little bit slower if he just tosses the heal onto his minion wave. So if she actually detonates her damage onto the minion wave and you just heal the minion wave back to full, she is screwed. She now basically has to sit with every single minion inside her tower range and then trying desperately to get last hits on the back archers if she wants any gold. Matches like that, like that's why Ra is really considered really good against Loki in the soul lane as well. Ra can go into the soul lane because he's pretty safe there. If like Loki decoys your entire minion wave, you just put the heal on the minion wave, and he's basically screwed in clearing until until he gets his decoy to like level 4, or he starts getting enough farm. So identifying those matchups, Isis used to have a really hard time against He-Bo, because Isis still had to get relatively close to the wave, and when she did her wing gust, you'd knock her up into the air, and she'd lose her wing gust. I believe they made it so her wing gust is knock up and knock back immune now, so that's not the same thing, but if you're like in a mirror match against another Isis, if all you do is sit there and silence her or stun her the second she tries to wing gust you and you can dodge hers, you'll win the lane that way. So identifying how to kind of counter a character too and what parts of your kit will counter theirs, you want to look for what will deny them clear and what will make it so that they can't move forward into you. Putting tornadoes really far back or on top of them in the path they want to take to clear the wave. This is why Anubis is generally considered not that good. To clear the wave, he pretty much has to go forward and breathe onto the minions early, and you can just toss a tornado on him, slow him, really anything, and he's kind of sad. And that's why if you could, leveling up 1 would be the best thing ever, but you can't. You have to level up to his 3, and that is still a weak wave clear, and it's not that good. So, I believe, yeah, but Herc is different. So Crunch Drop Out Point, knock up and knock back, they're technically the same thing. Um, some skills are different though, because Hercules push also stuns, and so that's more of a I stun you and then I push you, and that generally will bring you out of any form of knockback immunity. A good example for Anubis, like Anubis uses his ult and he becomes CC immune, but he's rooted in place. If you Herc 1 through him, you'd only do damage, you wouldn't push him, because he's immune to that stun. So that's kind of the difference. It's that stun hits and then you get pushed. I also don't think even if it didn't stun, if that would classify. There's a few edge cases in terms of knockbacks and knocks-ups that are weird, but for 95% of the cases, knock-up and knockback are the same thing. And that's kind of really it. The knockback effect from Ao Kuang's or Kukulkan's ultimate is the same as Tail Whip, essentially, for all intents and purposes. The other effect is, and this is just good to know for knockbacks, or knockups more likely. So like for example, the He-Bo knockup, and it really only applies to He-Bo, but that He-Bo knockup, you can control the direction you're going to go. When you get hit by it, it's whatever direction you were moving last. So if you're moving forward, and this is also good for Hebo because you can get people in really bad spots. If you're moving forward and they hit you with that skill, you just continue your momentum going forward. If you're going backwards, you'll continue your momentum backwards. Um, it's just handy to know. It doesn't come into play too often, but it's a good mechanic to know. Um, so now I've gone over dueling in the wave. Kind of key points there. Minions hurt, especially really early. You want to try and establish dominance because you don't want to be on the receiving end of eating minion damage. And the way you kind of counter certain picks is look at your kit and see, okay, what can my kit do to stop this person? If they have weak clear, heals are really, really good. This is why Raw is generally a strong pick against a lot of kind of the weaker pushers. See if you can interrupt their clear. Just kind of stuff like that. And even like look to see if you can force minions onto them. A good example is Agni. Agni, his dash, a lot of them love to get dash at level 1, and a lot of them love to just sit there on that first wave and dash through. If you're just standing in the wave, let him dash onto you and then walk out of it, so you'll eat 3 ticks of it. It's about 60 to 80 damage. They're going to eat archer damage the entire time they're running away, and that's more like 100 to 200 damage. So, like, you can actually punish people trying to clear, too. It just depends on the character. You want to look for opportunities. So I've been saying you want to try and establish lane dominance, but 1v1s in the mid lane generally don't result in kills. At least not early. Later on, you can get wombo comboed into like all the damage, sure. But early on, it's pretty hard to actually get a kill because it's a mixture of, if I blow everything on this character, I'm likely eating minion damage and they'll kill me, and I also might just lose the push war. But later on, you can get kills. But for now, really, especially the early game, it's all about who denies minions, who can poke the other best, and who can do this all while not running out of mana. If you're playing a Raw and you're being really wasteful with your heals, healing yourself in between waves that you don't really need to, looking for these one pokes that you really aren't going to assuredly get, you can find yourself in a bad spot by running out of mana like around level 3, level 4. And so you just kind of want to look to see if you're making those mistakes, see if the enemy's making those mistakes. If you're making them, stop doing them. If the enemy is making them, look to capitalize on them. And your goal in the lane is more about setting up opportunities for your jungler to come. It's really rough to gank as a jungler when the enemy mid is just kind of sitting there farming and he's at full health. If he's sitting there around his tower and he's half health, the gank becomes a lot easier because I can get a lot more damage out before he gets into tower range. But if he's full health, all I'm going to do is just gank there, maybe take away a quarter to half of his health, and he's just going to sit back there and then play way more passive, and it's kind of a waste of time. If you can sit there and poke him a little bit so he's even a little bit low, or bait him into going forward to clear the wave, by like having him push so often and then not pushing so he goes forward, that's kind of the best thing you can do because that's most likely how you're going to get your kill in mid lane. And you also want to look for when you can rotate. This is going to happen more around level 5 to 9. But at some point, eventually, you're going to clear the way faster, but they're going to clear equally fast. It's just going to take them a few seconds longer before it gets into tower range. You want to look for that opportunity to immediately leave lane and rotate. Good gods for this are Poseidon because of his movement speed, Ra because of his movement speed, and the fact that he could just snipe into a lane rather than actually committing to a lane. Characters like, I had another one in my head. Poseidon, Ra, Vulcan. Vulcan can be actually really good. If you know a fight's really set up, you can just kind of ult and hope it hits in the lane. Some characters that are kind of really bad at this would be Anubis, Hell, and you can see kind of those are the not so good mages. Most of the good mages have ways to rotate pretty quickly, or at least when they're rotating, they're also safe, because you also have to be aware that you might run into the enemy jungler while you're looking to rotate, and so you need to at least be able to get away or duel, and a lot of those characters have a really hard time if they get caught out of dying. So it's really about what can you get away with and what characters allow you to get away with more, and that's why you generally see the characters like Agni, Ra, Ao Kuang. It's really hard to aggress on Ao Kuang because he can just put a tornado on himself. He can slow you. He can ult if you get really close to him. He can ult and force you to either leave or take a lot of damage. Ra has his slow, his heal, just kind of stuff like that. And then the final thing you want to look for is mid harpies. A lot of people won't be ready for the mid harpies, and so it's really important for you to actually understand when mid harpies are respawning. Mid harpies are every 3 minutes, and you're going to take your first camp. It's going to spawn at 10 seconds, but it's going to take you anywhere from 5 to 8 seconds to kill it. So the first respawn is generally 3:15, 3:20, and you want to try and be ready for it 20 seconds beforehand, especially with your jungler and your support, because if you're ready and you're looking to take your harpies, which is I should go over this first. Your harpies and their harpies. Your harpies is on minimap right, so it doesn't matter what side you're on, but it's always minimap right, because minimap right is the one that is essentially easiest to get to from your tower. Um, it's just shorter, and if you get in trouble, you can kind of just go back to your tower as needed. But that's generally why you always start on the minimap right. It's not just this convention that was developed. There's a reason for it. It's slightly safer to go for it. Um, if you're all ready for about 10 to 15 seconds earlier, you can sit there and look for opportunities like, hey, this mid laner is getting pushed under tower. Maybe we can go 3v2 the enemy mid harpies because they're setting up for it. Or maybe we're looking at wards and no one's even rotated there yet, so we can go get that and then go get ours. Um, Mid harpy control is really important. If you can establish it early, you're likely going to go really strong into the mid game, because it's not so much about the gold mid harpies provides, it's the experience. Because early on for mids and for junglers alike, levels are way more important. Per level, you're getting armor, health, um, magical protection in some cases. You're getting a lot of stuff, just raw stats, and not to mention you're upgrading one of your skills to be stronger, and you're going to get to your rank 2 ultimate sooner and rank 3 ultimate sooner. Um, sure, gold is helpful, but really, like, getting the levels is really kind of what's the most important thing about mid harpies. And so if you can not only take yours but deny the enemy mid harpies, you will be in a lot stronger of a position. So, um, out rotating. So this is kind of going into that same thing. Um, the things that help you out rotate is wards. A lot of people will be like, oh, I don't need wards, I'll just play safe and just sit there in the mid lane and be close to tower. And sure, that's fine, you can do that. And you likely won't get killed unless you're fighting someone like Loki and Athena, or like a really strong Thor gank that's ahead. You can probably get away with that just fine, but you're kind of missing the point. You're just saying, like, my only job is farming, I'm not going to help out the team, I'm not going to rotate, I'm not going to look for mid harpies. And that's not really good. A good mid will buy wards mainly for the fact that it gives vision and insight to what's actually going on in the other team. Sure, it's for safety reasons, you can see where the enemy jungler is, but you can also then see, oh, not like if you see an enemy mid laner, he's constantly dipping in and out of the jungle, you can see when he commits to actually rotating to a lane, so you can follow in response to it. You can see, hey, the jungler was here about a little bit ago and he went to his back speed camp, so I know that I can be aggressive here because he's not there right now. He's not here to gank me right now. Stuff like that, it'll allow you to make better decisions about when you want to rotate, when you want to follow rotation, and when you can actually get control of mid harpies. And if one ward gives you mid harpy control for one respawn, it's paid for itself in gold, and you've also gotten the experience on top of it. So wards, buy wards, just get them. They're good. They're good in every role. They really are. I don't think there's a role where you shouldn't buy wards. And I know I'm bad by example because I tend to not buy too many wards, but like, really I should buy more, and everyone should buy more. It's just way too strong. The other thing about rotating that I should mention before I move on, and about um, kind of just in general, uh, how do I want to phrase this? When you want to rotate, when you want to leave your lane, I'll see a lot of mids, like, they'll decide halfway until their wave is actually coming up that, oh, I want to rotate now, and they'll leave. And then they'll just lose a mini wave of experience. And they might even get something for it. They might even get a kill. But you're leaving a lane where a single wave is going to give you a ton of experience, a ton of gold. Like, a single wave is 25, let's just average 25 gold times 6, so 150 gold. You're going to be losing that just to rotate, when you could have just sat there, waited for that wave, and then left upon clearing the wave. This is kind of why clearing a wave really fast is important, is because you can clear the wave really quickly and then begin to do other stuff really fast. And by the time you finish with all your other stuff, like going over to another lane, you can probably make it back to mid and at least get some of the farm, if not all of it. And so you don't want to hesitate after you've cleared a wave. Once you're beginning to clear a wave, you want to have a clear, like, what am I going to do in the next 30 seconds in your head? Because that's going to be, like, essentially, you're going to have less than 30 seconds, but that's essentially what you're going to be deciding what you're going to do, and you want to try and get back to the lane. So if that means, oh, I need to go leave for the back red, clear the wave first, then go for the back red. That's why in competitive you'll see the jungler come farm that wave with him and then leave for the red, and then come back, and then they'll go for back harpies and they'll come back. They're optimizing their farming time because they know they just have downtime, and they know by throwing their mid out of the lane, it's creating pressure around the map because where's the jungler in mid? We don't know. And so that's kind of the smart play to do. So really, mid lane is all about trying to deny your opponent these opportunities, make use of the opportunities yourself, and just overall being more competent than the enemy mid laner. Like, generally, mid laners just come down to who is better at executing these mechanics more often, and that's every lane. But, like, in mid, there's so much to be done. Like, in solo lane, if the solo laner is more confident than you, you could probably just sit there and be like, I'm going to farm against him, and he can't get that much of an advantage on you. If the jungler is more confident than you, he can really punish you because that role is really important. If you're more confident than the mid, you can really punish because you have a ton of map presence. If you're the hunter and you're not that competent, as long as you're not dying, you can pretty much get to late game and be fine. So mid and jungle are kind of the hardest characters for the fact that you actually need to be capitalizing mistakes the most. Anyways, I'm going to take a quick break here, and then when we come back, I'm going to go straight into a raw guide. The raw guide will be some more in-game footage. It won't be just me talking. I feel like strategic sections, unless I have like a specific example, I'm just going to talk. But we're going to go over raw next, and we're going to go in-game, show off the skills, and then I'm going to explain build, skill order is kind of what raw's good at. And I'm going to try and tie it together with this guide, with how his strengths and his weaknesses kind of go into what I just talked about. So I'll be back in about 5 minutes, and I will see you guys then.